Go ahead.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any additions or corrections? Resolution 1.02 to approve the agenda?
No, there are not.
Okay. Would someone move item 1.02 to approve this agenda?
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed 4-0-0. Evacuation procedure, please note at either end of this room, exit sign. I would ask you in an emergency to calmly leave the building and move out away from the building. Would you now join me in the pledge to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'm turning the meeting over to Superintendent Baldino.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to the board to present this evening. Mr. Ray, I will be picked up by the owl. Is that, am I being picked up all right there tonight?
Yep.
Great, thank you. All righty, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming in. So I just wanted to follow up. We had some questions with respect to the new administrative organizational chart, which we're putting together and presented for next year, 2022-23. We did a presentation on March 8th to the board and to the community, and then we had some further questions on the 22nd. So hopefully what I've done is I've taken all the information, compiled it in more of hopefully a friendlier format for this evening. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, everything that we do comes back to our Fulton City School District vision and mission, and I believe that this org chart will allow us to further put our resources in positions to be more effective and efficient in doing that work. Next slide, please. So the administrative org chart, the purpose for this restructuring is to maximize the resources of the Fulton City School District to achieve our vision and mission every year. The 22-23 Administrative Organizational Chart aligns administrators to provide strong, coherent leadership and supervision, which realize all aspects of our strategic coherence plan. And we're heading into our 4th year. It's hard to believe we're in the middle of that now. 22-23, or 23-24 will be our 5th year. So we'll be heading into our 4th. The reorganization will increase efficiency and support within all aspects of our learning organization and empower our faculty and staff to support the needs of every student. And this 2022-23 framework will improve leadership and cultivate a more collaborative culture, deepen learning, strengthen oversight and accountability in each of the areas. So remember that our wheel that drives our strategic coherence plan is focused direction, and then developing that collaborative culture, making sure we're bringing out the leaders at every single level of our organization. And I believe that this structure will allow us to do so. Then to deepen the learning and to decide what exactly we need to do to further our knowledge, further our skills, to ensure that we're doing the best that we can. And then finally, the accountability aspect. Why the change for 2022-23? We have 3 retirements and a resignation. So when you look at that, that's a chunk of our administrative team. And anytime you have that opportunity, you need to do so. And really look at, are we organized? Do we look at the people we have, look at the resources, and look what we need to for our district at that time. We have new needs for support, which requires adjustment of resources, the addition of an early childhood position, as well as support for special education, specifically at the early childhood level. Increased needs due to the impacts of COVID-19 on each individual learner, faculty, and staff member. I think we see that not only locally, but across the region, across the country. All of the different things that have bubbled up to the surface with respect to literacy, instruction, social, emotional, developmental health, and so on. And leadership. I think this has affected, obviously, all of our leaders, our administrators as well. Variable availability of human resources, candidates for positions, and physical supplies and resources for daily operations. The pools that were once there seem to be starting to decline, the number of candidates that are applying for positions, whether they are teaching positions or administrative positions. So we really need to get out in front of those, get posting, get recruiting. We also have to ensure how are we going to be able to retain our high-quality staff as well, because there's going to be a lot of different districts and positions looking for similar things. And we have to make sure that we make Fulton the place where nobody ever wants. They all want to come, and they also don't want to leave. Leadership and management of all the resources associated with the one-time federal funds. We have $15 million worth of funds that have come in that are one-time. And with that, we have a lot of accountability and make sure we have a short amount of time to maximize all of the resources associated with those one-time funds. And then coherent focus on all aspects of our strategic coherence plan and district. And I think we've done a very good job with that over the last 5 years. Next slide. So this is our current administrative org chart. Across the top, you have the superintendent. I'm up underneath the top there. Chief of Operations Innovation, Executive Director of Human Resources and Student Support, Executive Director of Instruction and Achievement, Director of Health, PE, and Athletics, as well as leading our COVID work, and then our Director of Special Education. The yellow blocks are blocks where we have a resignation or a retirement. So yellow are areas where resignation or retirement. Next slide, please. So the adjustment is a little bit different. So just go back one slide again. So look at the way it's spread out currently. And really the hub is really these three positions are the main components right now, and then you'll see that in just a moment. All right, so what we've done is, and I'm going to work you left to right. So the Chief of Operations has become, of Operations and Innovation is now Chief of Operations and Finance. The position that's going to be supporting this is formerly the Business Administrator FTE. So that's a retirement. Our Business Administrator is retiring. We've slid it here, and the Chief of Operations and Finance will fill that slot. The slot that the operations person was in, which was the Director of Instructional Technology position right here, is now going to become the Director of Instructional Technology and Data. So we're repurposing the Director of Technology position. And then we have the Director of Facilities and Operations and Transportation, and the Director of School Nutrition. Next one over, Deputy Superintendent. This is formerly the position of, actually it's not yellow, but should be the EDIA, is the Executive Director of Instruction and Assessment, actually goes here. So this should be yellow as well. And so we're repurposing that position, and that'll be the Deputy Superintendent's position. So EDIA moves to Deputy Superintendent, and under that is everything academic. Director of Student Support Services, Director of Special Education. We made a decision a couple of years ago when the Director of Special Education has always been a direct report to the superintendent. That's the way it kind of had been. We made the decision as soon as that was retirement, we wanted to get it back in as one of those supports where it needed to be. So that's what we're doing. The Director of Humanities. This is the former Director of Literacy. So now it's the Director of Humanities. It's really an expansion on the literacy position, because literacy is pervasive across pre-K through 12, across all subject areas. So the Director of Humanities really allows us to put a greater lens in the area of social studies and some other areas where we don't necessarily have a lens. We think literacy, we think reading, we think ELA. So this is our way to really encompass more and really put that emphasis on literacy across pre-K-12. The Director of STEAM. This was formerly the Director of Instructional Support Services. This position, parts of this is actually right up in here in the data. And we also have a COSER that we've been working on that's been a part of us right along. We have a COSER for support through the CNY RIC, and we've been doing that for years. So Director of STEAM, and it puts more emphasis on science and math, two areas where we really haven't had a lot of head and leadership out front. We've had coaches, done a fantastic job, and principals. But this allows us to put more of an emphasis on that. Also in the arts, an area where I think oftentimes they're part of a district in the special areas and that, so they're here. New position, right here. Director of Early Childhood Education. This puts our emphasis on UPK, CPSE, early intervention, and CPSC and early CSE, which is special education. Presently, this position is funded in our ARP, and we're looking at different ways we can fund that in other grants. Could be part of the special education IDEA grant because there's a special education component to this. There could be Title I, because there's literacy aspects, early literacy, so there's a number of ways we can look at this funding. So this is this side. This side is the principal of G. Ray Bodley, which we have a retirement, the assistant principals, the junior high principal, the assistant principal at the junior high, the Fairgrave principal, of which is retiring, Granby principal, Lanigan principal, Volney principal, and then the director of human resources is currently where Mrs. Geithner is. That will revert to an open vacancy, and we'll hire a director of human resources. So you can see how we've been able to repurpose and really think about how do we rethink about these positions as far as titles, as well as roles and responsibilities. And you'll see those at your desks this evening. I give the actual job descriptions. The actual posting of the jobs is what you'd see there. That's actually what, if you were applying for the job, you'd be looking at. So it goes down into more of the details. Next slide, please. So this is really the org chart in a much more fancy way. I think the other way works as well. This really epitomizes all of the work and what you just saw. This line needs to come out of here because the HR director should be a separate line here. So it's really these two working with the HR. HR supports all, but is not a supervisor, so that would need to come off of there. Next slide, please. And then finally, there's always a question about what are the costs. The current budget, we have $2.661,508. 22-23, this is based on a 3% roll, just kind of a standard as we were going through things. It's $2,625,000. One would say, why did that go down? You have breakage, you have retirements, you've got different positions. That's how that happens, through the breakage. So right now we're looking at somewhere between cost neutral or less, $36,000 to $56,000, depending on the HR director. And then also obviously any contractual obligations that would be associated with degrees or hours or whatnot. Next slide. And then finally, similar to what I shared before, these are the very brief job descriptions. This is the deputy superintendent. And I've really already talked about this. We've added special education in this realm, as well as a broader scope of work. Next slide. What we've added on the slides was just some background information. I know you're going to be voting on two candidates this evening. This is Ms. Geithner, some of her highlights of her background, what she brings to the table, the experiences. In particular, I think even now is teaching future leaders, and it serves as a teacher and instructor at Lemoyne as well as SUNY Oswego. And also brings a lot of political background as well, which is unique to the position as well as a lot of experience in our schools. Next slide. Chief Operations and Finance, I already spoke about this. This is really our new budget or business office, coupled with everything operations. Really brings this position back full circle. When I first came, a lot of these components were there. Now it's all back together again. And hopefully that'll create the coherence we need. We've already seen some changes in our business office, as well as we're starting to see some things in our maintenance and facilities now. Next slide. Some highlights from Dr. Lisi. I'm not going to go through those, but he served as a teacher as well as director of technology, and he's been at the forefront with some of the major digital types of things in our state. So there's a lot going on there, and a lot of experience and leadership coming with Dr. Lisi. And the fact, I believe your doctorate was in leadership, around the dynamics of leadership, right? So, next slide, please. And then these are the brief snapshots, the general responsibilities and the positions of humanities, director of STEAM, next slide. Early childhood education, and the director of technology and data. I believe that's it. Are there any questions? Any more? I think that's it. Any questions? I think I tried to encompass all the questions I've received.
Right, I just wondered, looking at what was shared, so maybe it's there and I missed that.
Sure.
In terms of the evaluation of all of the administrative team, is that all going to be done by the deputy superintendent, or how
So that'll be, can you go back up to the chart, please, Tom? So what I did with the former two EDIs ago with Ms. Connors, for example, as well as Mr. Carroll, is that we did this together. We did the principals together. They were the lead. in those positions, but we often did those together and collaboratively with them. So I would say chief of operations would have everything on this side of the chart for them. And the deputy superintendent would be a shared responsibility with myself and the deputy superintendent. That's what we had done previously. We had done some together. Good question. Other questions?
Yep, just a couple questions. So
Sure.
this is definitely starting to make sense, thank you. Okay, so I'm seeing that, I understand Jerry and definitely, and then the ones in the green, the retitled positions
You
that
got
are
one?
green,
Yep. Is this one you're talking about, Ms. Mandel?
yes.
Okay.
Are those must-fill positions? Are we gonna talk about, who? I don't need to know who's, I'm not asking who, but are those needed positions to be filled?
We have one of the most talented, I've been around the education 32 years.
Yep.
We have one of the most talented leadership teams that I've ever been a part of in those 32 years. I believe everybody we need is on there, with exception of a director of human resources, which we need to recruit. We have to recruit a high school principal. We have internal and external candidates that we're in the process of reviewing. In fact, Ms. Geithner this afternoon ran 2 focus groups with staff at each of Fairgrave and G. Ray Bodley. At Fairgrave, same thing, internal and external candidates. We've been screening candidates. We started that about a week ago. Some very local and some very far away, so it's been an interesting experience. The Director of Special Education has been posted. We have been screening. Internal and external candidates are eligible to apply. The Director of Early Childhood has not been posted because right now we were still waiting to get through this part today, or actually hope to the other day. The Director of Human Resources isn't vacant right now. It will be as soon as a vote's taken, then we can get going on a Director of Human Resource position because presently Jerry Geithner is sitting in the position. Formerly the Business Administrator is now being filled by Dr. Lisi, hopefully after this evening. The Director of Instructional Technology and Data will be posted because right now he's in that seat. He's in the FTE, the full-time employee, so it's not a vacancy. And I believe that's all of them.
And then, so the Director of Human Resources, seems like Jerry's taking on, she's got a lot of responsibilities. What is the Director of Human Resources, what will their role be? To oversee
Jerry, do you want me
the
to-
director, is to oversee the athletic director and.
No, actually, the way, I'm glad you just said it. If you go to the next one down, the athletic director gets he gets me. I'm his supervisor. There it is. This is better. The chart doesn't do it justice. So if you look at this one,
Right.
so the health, PE, athletics is a direct report to the superintendent.
Okay.
So I have that. And then the older, you can go back to the next one. The only new one for that's on top of what the EDIA hit already is the early childhood. And in fact, it really should be a great interface with the Director of Humanities and STEAM because, we have down in these grades, we have pre-K through 2nd grade kids that have to get science and ELA, math, and social studies. So it should allow us to get a greater gain. And think about it, our 2nd graders haven't had a typical year yet. So we got a lot of kiddos that we're gonna really need that lens on them. That's the purpose of that position.
The purpose of Human Resources?
The Director of Early Childhood. The Director of Human Resources is going to be doing all things people, contracts, everything,
Still doing the health.
Yeah, Jerry, you want to speak to
healthcare.
your,
So the Director of Human Resources will do the recruiting, oversee the hiring process and compliance with civil service law, implementation and negotiation of collective bargaining units, agreements, and management and oversight of our benefits administration program. So all of the onboarding, also there's an APPR oversight function as far as development of an APPR plan and compliance with regulations regarding APPR and other evaluations for other bargaining units. And the interface between all of the building administrators and directors who are responsible for recruiting and sure that we have consistent procedures in place that follow our board policies and state regulations.
So it's like a personnel.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And that's in a category all itself, like you're.
Because they are in the
Because they-
unit.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So they really report to the three of us and work, as the fourth person of that team because they can't be part of a bargaining unit because
Yep.
they're going to
Okay.
be, they may be dealing with some difficult things. Other questions?
It threw me off with an athletic director.
Yeah, because the next, you know what it was? I didn't have enough blocks to go to the right. Actually, if you go up one more, you could actually see it was actually, that's the way it is now. That's the current one.
Got it.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, I'll move to the resolution.
I'll move.
I'm going to wait 1 second. I just want, Lynn, are you with us? She is not, okay. All right, I know she tried to be here. All righty. So we have a move and a second on item 3.01, appoint deputy superintendent. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I believe that's passed 5-0-0. Item 3.02, appoint chief of operations and finance.
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passed 5-0-0. And item 4.01, to adjourn this meeting.
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed 5-0-0. I thank you, my colleagues, for coming this evening and helping to get this moving. Thank you, Superintendent Baldino.
Do you have any questions on the job, please? I think that's what you were looking for, finally.
That's how my brain, I'm very, yeah.
I figured it out.
Can we,
I was thinking